on a Saturday morning, 9 a.m. I know how difficult that is for you people, but thank you so much for joining in. We have with us Avishek Nandi, who is also an alumni of CUSAT, and he will take you through his journey on what he did after CUSAT. So let's start. Let's hear it right from him. Over to you, Avishek. Thank you.
Thanks, Maya. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, guys. I know it's Saturday morning. Thanks for being here at 9 a.m. Like Maya said, Avishek Nandi. I'm also a CUSAT alum. I graduated 2003. And before I start, I just want to first thank Maya for having me here. I was looking at what the Engineers League is doing, and it's just so amazing the kind of speakers you've had here. Maya was a super senior when I was here in the university, and she was a force to reckon with back then. Highly respected, a lot of energy, and as we are all watching what she's doing in the university now, a lot of respect. And even I think what you're doing and the volunteers who are organizing this, we didn't have this much of an organized event back when I was here. So it's really good to see this. I'm happy to be here. Even for the few of us, while we're here, let's make use of our next 45 minutes, 1 hour. I would love to tell you what I have. There are a few slides prepared, right? So we'll try to make good use of the time. Uh, but before we jump in, let's make sure all the technology works. I wanted to do some interaction things, but we are in PDF, so the interaction won't work. So tell me, can you see the screen? Yes, you can.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
this is a very interactive question. Everybody has to answer this, right? So I'm expecting answers. So first, let's think about, we're all engineers here. Edward Deming's famous electrical engineer, he said, "In God we trust. Everybody else has to get data." So I want some data. How many people have watched Rhythm in this group right now? You'll have to speak up, otherwise I won't know the number.
No, I haven't.
Manilal has. Tanmay is
No,
a
no, no, no,
no.
no, no. It's
Manilal
only
also
for
no.
me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
ये आपको देखना पड़ेगा, ठीक है? Don't miss it.
It's
Tanmay is
it's
a no. What about
these
others?
these guys are not Malayalis, so I think it is.
I got one yes. Mohammed is yes. However, so I got one yes and three no's so far. Utkarsh, no answers from you. Ritesh, I don't think you've answered. There's a unmute button on the phone. Come on. Oh, I see some QSAT Club no's. Maya saying yes.
That's me. That's me. I haven't
Yeah.
seen it.
All right. So let's. It's a good group. It's a good group. I like it. How many people went to bed before 2 a.m. last night? Maya did. That's good.
I did.
Very
I
good.
did. I go at 8:30.
Tanmay still. No, Mohammed, no. Marilal said yes, he did. Some more people did. Okay, this is a good group. I knew before coming in that we're kind of, hey, Ritesh went to sleep before 2 a.m. Okay, I believe that. I believe that. And that's probably why you're up right now. All right, guys, let's jump in. First of all, thank you for giving me this time. I want to start by just telling you why you should listen to me. And if this doesn't seem appealing, please leave. Otherwise, stay here. I went to CUSAT, graduated 2003. We are a CUSAT family. I met my wife Tulsi at CUSAT. So those of you who are like in the university and the art fest and stuff, it was just amazing. But in addition to it, the engineering experience, I was an electronics and communication engineer. So it was highly rewarding in CUSAT. I was a silver medalist, not a gold medalist. I kind of missed out on it because I joined my friends for a hartal one time and got into trouble. So if any of you are still participating in hartal, learn from me. Don't, or you can. Uh, we also had great projects while in CUSAT. Right? So I was participating. I was joined a live project for DRDO. We did the navigation system for a drone. Back then, they were not called drones. They were called unmanned aviation vehicles. I did a project for a DSP control radar controller for the naval labs. And there were two startups back then. They were not called startups. It was really me and another, I think Maharaja College friends. We tried to do a control system for a endosulfane lab. And then a gentleman whose dad from the Middle East was funding him, we created some PIC microcontroller devices. So CUSAT experience, very rich, great. Coming out of CUSAT, IBM, 5 years of software engineering experience, global, because many of you know, and Manila will probably see this too, most tech jobs take you abroad, all over. I worked in Singapore, I worked in the US, I worked in one of the top management consulting firms. They're called Strategy and today. We'll talk more about that. And I've also worked in the healthcare industry. Cigna, it's a large global firm. I helped build a division, which was a $250 million division there. And then we sold it to another big company. And as it usually happens for people like me, once you do that, you come back into consulting. So right now I work in a consulting firm. So that's sort of me. What we'll do now, right, is just next, I think we've got about 40 minutes. Uh, we'll do 2 pages of just the industry itself. Hey, what is management consulting? What are the companies in there? Why should you care about it? Right? And you as an individual, what matters in there? Please ask questions. I'm expecting some of you already know a lot about consulting. Rest of you just want to figure out what it is. So ask questions along the way. You'll see I do like questions. And then I have 2 pages that will become more about me, very personal, how my journey was. So if you don't want this to be too personal, ask all your questions up front and let's finish up the time about the industry. Does that sound good? All right, I'm going to expect that's yes. So let's flip over. All right, this looks like a busy page. Just don't worry. I'll kind of walk you through it. Let's focus on the left side of the page. Let's talk about the industry itself. Management consulting, uh, maybe let me check how many folks generally you probably understand. Oh no, let's not assume. Let's talk about consulting, right? You think about management consulting. There are strategy consulting firm, there are operational consulting firm, financial consulting firm, organizational consulting firm, and then tech consulting firm. Manilal is in TCS, one of the most reputed, well-branded technology consulting companies. I started my career out of school at IBM. It's right now, many of you may not respect it. Back then, like 20 years ago, it was highly respected. Right now they've lost it, but you'll see them down here. So consulting comes in a whole spectrum, right? So that this is one way of thinking about the consulting spectrum, as you on the top left. The other way to think about them is in the bottom left, right? You'll see some names here in the bottom left. You see this is a nice 2 by 2. Consulting firms either focus on business or technology, right? Left to right. You're either more business or you're more technology, or your more strategy to execution, right? Strategy or business ends up being like what the senior leaders in a company thinks about. What is my company about? Where should I take it over the next several years? Right? Execution's about how do I do it? Um, Few names, let's all kind of hear in our mind. So the big prestigious name in the space is McKinsey, BCG, and Bain. These are the prestigious strategy consulting firm, right? Those are the people who are paying a lot of money. They're the one who are doing like really industry shaping kind of work. A lot of people who aspire to be in consulting, those are the places they want to go. Now, it doesn't mean the other firms don't do good work. I just wanted to kind of show, how what's the analogy? If you want to be an engineer in India, you want to be an IIT. You want to get an MBA in India, you want to be an IIM. So that's sort of the league there with McKinsey, BCG, Bain. But then you'll see some of the other names in there. Right? Next comes the big four accounting firms. So Deloitte's here, KPMG's here, uh, PwC's here. These are the accounting firms who also do sort of management consulting and advisory. And then on the top over here on the right, you'll see the names which many of you may have heard of. Accenture. I'm hoping many of you are like targeting them. They pay well. Accenture is one of the largest organizations in consulting from a revenue perspective in the world, right? And they span the entire. Like when you look at this, even though here it makes them look like execution and technology, I have friends and colleagues in Accenture who do a lot of the kind of strategy consulting that I do too. So these big houses like Accenture and even Cognizant for that matter, they've been really doing a lot of strategy work. All right, so why does all this matter? I threw in some numbers here. Let's tell me if these resonate with you. Right on the right, you'll see some industry numbers. Overall, and this is US and this is US dollars, so don't laugh. And because like when I was in your shoes sitting there, I didn't think about US dollars. I only thought about rupees and whatever I had. But this will still give you a sense, right? $253 billion is spent in the US in consulting. That's about 10% of India's overall GDP. Right? That's 1% of US GDP, but it's about 10% of India's GDP. So one in every $10 spent in running India a year is spent in this industry. And if you look at these lines you see, don't have to understand any of these lines. The only thing I want you to read in these flat lines, it's a flat line, right? Uh, how many folks in here remember Chanakya or Birbal, right? Why am I going there? Is because advisors have always been there, right? People, we need great leaders. I'm sure many of you have startups in your mind. You want to be you want to have your own entrepreneurial business. Many of you want to be business leaders. Folks always need an advisor. So this industry is not going anywhere. And I've seen this flat curve in my 20 years, and I can tell you this has been there since Birbal's time, since Chanakya's time. The other important thing, and we'll go to that next, is look at this on the if so. By the way, is my cursor showing up when I move it up and down? Can you guys see? No. Okay. Then I'll just point your attention to it. So the $253 billion is the overall size of this industry. And in the bottom, there's an arrow that says wages. $122 billion is wages. So more than half of the revenue of this industry is paid in wages to the people who work in it. Now, think about that for a second, because in most industries, when you work, right, the revenue that comes in, it's used to build up the factory, right, pay for supply chain, pay for taxes. Only a portion of it goes to the people who work in it. Consulting is a people business, right? It's a knowledge business, it's a people business. Any of you who work in here, most of the money you make is the money you keep. And that's really, and we'll see that number next. But there's a reason why this is such a high rewarding industry, because there's a lot of money to be made here. Um, we'll finish the conversation by talking about money is not important, but sometimes money is important. There are two boxes here. You can read it. I'm realizing this is too small. All it talks about is the major trends in this industry right now is digitization. I'm assuming that there's a lot of engineers here who would kind of play in some kind of engineering, right? Software engineering, hardware engineering, IoT is a big deal. Uh, all of those trends, digitization trends, is driving consulting today, especially with the pandemic and now with the war in Eastern Europe. Public markets are depressed, right? Which is said simply, all of you are watching what's happening in the stock markets. They're highly depressed, right? What's also that's doing is the private money is really flowing in. So private equities, venture capital funds, people are pushing in money. So as engineers coming into the market, what you have to understand is there's space not only in public companies, but even private companies are getting a lot of money for you, right? And consulting plays in all of those places. Okay, I'm going to take a quick breather. Thanks for, I see a lot more people join. We're now at 19, and I bet there's at least 10 Hridium fans in there right now. I should have asked the question and asked it later. But any questions? Anybody who's joined in now, anything comes in mind, please go on mute, unmute, and ask questions if anything's in your mind. You, all of you should know, I love answering questions. Okay, they should come later. I try to find data on how much money can you make in consulting. I can tell you for personal experience that in the US you make a lot of money with it. Even in India, I saw a Glassdoor post that on an average it's 2 million rupees, which should be 20 lakh rupees, right? Uh, and it's a full range. It's you get a nice base and it's a high bonus structure. But more importantly than that, what might be more relevant, right? Easy for, I know everybody here is really strong in maths. Look at this table, right? Maybe the dates are hard to read. All this is doing is they surveyed 8,000 MBA graduates about their experience out of MBA in strategy consulting. This was the compensation, and if the numbers are not seen, I'll tell you. This was the compensation for people who graduated last year from MBA, and look at how, don't have to know the numbers, just look at how quickly this bar graph is growing over here. This is a 7 year gap, right? In 7 years, people who started here, it's about 115K, ended at 450K. So you make three times the amount of salary in 7 years of your career, right? Sure, if you kind of get into a Google or an Amazon, not Amazon, definitely no. You get into one of the fast growing unicorns, maybe you can like hit the jackpot. But a lot of the attraction for consulting is this bar graph that you're seeing, that folks come in for a high comp uh, uh, career. The compensation is not the only reason they come in here. Let's look at the right side, right? When you see rapid progression, that is true, right? You can, and you essentially you gotta kind of look at those four stages, right? You come in as an analyst, most likely after an MBA, you become an associate, manager, principal, partner. A partner is usually an owner of the company itself, right? So a part owner. So there are 5 stages, and you're making that 5 stages within 8 years of getting in. So if you think about other bigger corporations, Fortune 15, Fortune 50 companies, you're spending 20, 30 years building a career over there, right? You've got to be comfortable being part of a big organization. Consulting is different, right? Consulting, you come in and you're really seeing a rapid progression. That's why in a lot of business schools or schools, people are really drawn into this kind of a career. If that's also not attractive enough, I think the last point, and this is what drew me most into consulting, was how redeployable you become in consulting. Consulting is almost like being in school while getting paid for it. Right? The skill sets that you learn in consulting is highly redeployable. Right? You can go from one consulting firm to another consulting firm. And this chart here, and again, I know I fully recognize that, so my apologies. you can't read it. This is really saying where people went after consulting. And technology is number one. And as engineers, all of you should really know, even if you get into consulting, you come out of it, you go right back into technology. These are the high tech firms that it's really hot these days. Really goes there. But in terms of just skill sets, right? Core analytic skills, project management skills, case cracking. If you're interested, we'll talk a little bit about that. And selling. These are the four skills that you always need in consulting. And these are the four skills you need in any career to be successful. So most consultants, especially 3 or 4 years of strategy consulting, you're coming out and you're getting some kind of leadership position. I was a strategy consultant for 3 years, and I got an executive position in a Fortune 15 company. Although like for a very small division in there, and my experience is just like what many other people get it. So why should you think about consulting? Three reasons: high compensation, rapid progression, you're never going to be bored, and you're going to learn skills that you can easily redeploy in a lot of places. All right, I think we're going fast. There's a little cloud here, and I think I do want to keep pointing that out, because even though I'm talking a lot about compensation, note to all of you, note to my own self, comps don't matter. But when you're choosing a career, do think about comp, like go for the high comp thing. Okay, uh, we're gonna take a breather here. Any questions, guys? Okay, I promised or threatened even that if you don't ask questions, I'll make this personal. So let's get in. Uh, Next two pages are more about my own career. But any questions on the industry itself? You can go back. Anybody thinking about consulting, or even want to know how do you even apply for consulting from engineering?
I actually have a question. How would you actually go for a consulting job as a fresher? Because
Yeah,
these guys, when they graduate out, they are as freshers, right? And I don't think consulting can be for a fresher, is it? Yeah. So we
no,
have a question in the chat box also. Actually, sorry. How does one apply to consulting?
perfect. That's it. No, it is. It's funny. So one, Maya, thank you for the question. It's a brilliant one, and I had the same impression as you. Uh, so one, let's admit it is true. Consulting is highly. It tends to be an exclusive kind of a business. It's hard to get into. Right? You'll have to work hard to crack into it. So nothing I say should make it feel like it's easy to get into especially like these top tier firms that we're talking about. Right? It's not that easy to get in. I was under the impression too that it's hard to get into consulting. And that's really why what I did in my own case was I went for a good MBA school. And an MBA, if you go to a good MBA school, the top consulting firms come on the ground there. And you network your way. You really have to get to know. It's a consulting is a relationship business. It's who you know, right? And how you get in front of them. So generally going into business school is an easy way to do it because they come to recruit there and you figure out how to get hired. But don't lose hope because I want to come back here, right? So if you see here, analysts, and right now, even I work for a much smaller but a highly prestigious strategy firm right now. We hire pre-MBAs. So engineers are needed. And why are engineers needed is if you look down here, right? There's a few things you have as an engineer. You're strongly analytical. You think in terms of systems, triggers outcomes, right? Consulting is all about solving problems. The skill sets that we learned as engineers directly applies into consulting. Now, what does all that mean in terms of how should you go about doing it? Uh, is the word networking familiar with all of you? Hey, there you go. What is that? Let me make sure I can read the comment. There's a good comment coming in. There you go. Oh, there's a good course in management consulting too. Uh, Thank you for that, Nimita. That's really helpful. Here's how I'd say it. I know there's a School of Management Studies in CUSAT as well. I bet the consulting firms are coming there. Right? If enough engineers are interested, if you express interest, consulting is at the end of the day a relationship business, right? There's a thing called cracking the case, and everybody has Google. If this interests you, first you have to just make sure you read about what does it mean to crack a case. Consulting case interviews are all about cracking a case, right? And you can find it. It's not that hard. They'll give you a business problem. You have to really go on it on a structured basis, and solve it. So it's a problem solving thing. And what do engineers do really well? We solve problems. And so you can apply to a consulting firm. Preferably, you do it through a relationship. Right? If you know somebody who's at PwC, if you know somebody who's at KPMG, and also like one of the best advice I ever got was it's a numbers game, right? Let's go here. I think I have numbers. Look at this. There are, this is an over exaggerated number, but there's a number here that says 935,000 companies are
Um,
registered.
sorry to interrupt. Can you zoom it? We can't see anything
I
actually.
I know. How do I do this?
Is it
I'm
possible to
hoping.
zoom it a bit?
I'm sure there is. Let's go. Uh, t- 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 t-
Yes, yes, that's so much better. Thank you. Yes, we can see.
No, no, no.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the number I wanted to talk about. 935,000 businesses. There are lots of businesses doing consulting. Okay? And why that matters is always remember in any hiring, whether it's a strong market, and by the way, all of you are, some of us here graduated during really tough markets, right? I graduated during 2008 when the market meltdown was happening. You're coming out in a market which is hot. Hiring is incredible right now. Talent is needed. You're coming in a good market, but it's always a numbers game. So as much you can network with people, let people know. Uh, oh yeah, Ashwarya, I will answer that. As much you can network with people and let them know that you're interested in consulting, you are going to get a couple of interviews. But the bigger thing and the more important thing uh, is just, if you all can write it down, if any of you are trying to go for it, is you have to learn case interviews. Right? Learn about case interviews. Those are not hard. There's enough resources online on how to do case interviews. Usually what will happen is they'll tell you, they'll try to give you a real case that a consultant faces, right? I went to a client, they were having some operational issues, they were not making enough money, can you help us, right? So then you have to ask them a set of questions, structure the problem, and then help them solve it. So we'll stop this question here. Wonderful questions. Thank you, Maya. Engineers can apply for consulting. Uh, Preferably, you have to network with people you know, right, and let them know that you're interested. One thing that was thinking going in my mind is School of Management Studies in CUSAT likely has consulting firms coming. So if there's a way to get in touch with their recruiters and telling them, look, we have a group of people here who are interested. The market is so hot right now. I am willing to bet that the consulting firms would be interested to check out how many engineers want to apply. But you have to remember, very exclusive market, so be very prepared. Exclusive recruiting, so you have to be prepared for practicing cases. I think, Maya,
Is
you
there,
have a question. Right.
sorry, is there any particular skill they need to, so you say like SMS has their own interview, campus interview thing happening. So
Yep.
but that is because they are MBA grads, right? These guys are like engineering grads. So how, there would be obviously something that they need to bridge in order to get that skill, or something that they should know. Only then they'll be taken. Not just being an engineer is not enough, right? Is there any
Good.
particular thing they should, you know, work towards?
Very much. No, no, absolutely. And it is, see, I always felt that only MBAs make it into consulting. It's not true. If you look at this chart here, skill sets vary. Like when you're coming in pre MBA, which is that analyst bar you're seeing on the left, it's all about analytics, right? And if you just take a pause and think of, I think many of you here are fourth years, maths, analytics, numbers is what you've always done. Like that is your strength. Like that's what you do. If you can wake up and talk about 10% of 5% of 100, and what is that number? If you can think in fraction, if you can think in exponents, if that's what you do naturally, that's what they're testing, right? That's the gray box there. That's the biggest thing they're looking for. They're trying to see how well you think in numbers. Because how do you think big senior leaders lead in a few different ways, right? They lead with vision, but at the end of the day, the one thing that always works out for them is numbers. You want to understand what are my revenues. You want to understand what is my revenue per head of people I'm managing. What is my revenue per customers I'm serving. So in terms of skill sets that you need to prove out is you're comfortable with numbers, and you'll notice that comes out in the interviews as well. Right? A little bit of project management. How can you kind of work different scale, like lots of activities one after the other, and then really case cracking. It's a little easier for the undergrads, but please do research online about case cracking. It'll definitely come up in your interviews. Okay. I want to go to Ashwarya's question, if that's okay, about work looks like a different consulting firm. I think we have a page, so let's go to that portion. Where was it? No, it's the previous one. All right, here. So thank you for the question, Ishwarya. So generally, the stereotype. How many? Who all saw? There was a movie called Up in the Air. George Clooney. Anybody here has watched it? Maya has. That's good. Thank you. It's a great movie. A fantastic stereotype of consulting. When you hear consulting, most Tanmay, thanks. Yes, and by the way, a lot of it is true, including the firing bit too. So consulting, one we talked about the high com. The second thing is because you're paid so heavily by your clients, they usually want to see you there, right? Because again, it's that is the thing you're buying. You're buying the intellect. You're buying the person. So you're traveling. Uh, it's not unusual to be on the road 4 days out of five in a week, right? So you wake up Monday morning, you jump on a plane, you fly somewhere and you're spending your entire week out there somewhere. Thursday evening, you're back. Fridays are usually very straightforward. You either go to your home office or you're just sitting at home. Right. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you get to yourself, and Monday again, you're out traveling. So that's one. Now again, remember this is not entirely definitely the case with strategy consulting. Uh, but Ashwarya, if you go as you shift from strategy consulting, right, the amount of travel reduces. Strategy consulting is definitely what I will describe as most travel. And then what does the day look like? Usually you're spending the time, it's always teamwork. Consulting is highly a team oriented job. So you're never really working alone. You're working in teams of three, four, shifting all the way to right. Like I think Manilal's, he says from TCS. TCS teams are larger. So you're working in teams of 10 and 20. But you're really always working in teams. Usually you're starting your day. Um, no, let's put it this way. You're usually organizing your day around a few important client interactions. So team sessions ends up being in team meetings or on a whiteboard, you're having huddles together. And then when you're presenting to the client, that's when you're kind of sitting in a few different things happens, right? You could be sitting in a boardroom kind of setting, everybody's sitting at the table and you're talking through a strategy or you're kind of working through a problem. Or you could be, depending on what's going on, right? It's not unusual to be presenting to large organizations. So there'll be like a large town hall, 100 people, 200 people, you're presenting to them. I can tell you one thing, it's never boring, right? It's never boring because one day you do one kind of project, another day you're doing another kind of project. It always keeps you entertained and interested. Uh, Different. Okay, let's also answer it another way. The few other variation is between strategy consulting to technology consulting is the nature of work. And maybe let's go down here. What looks different is this spectrum over here. I'm looking at the bottom left. If you're in a strategy firm, usually you're one, because your rates are really high, and two, really, you don't really, if you think about yourself too, right? How long did you decide what engineering school to join and where to go? It didn't take you that long. But that was the strategy, right? You decided, you came here, and it took you 4 years to get through it. That's your execution. Execution is always longer. So if you're in a strategy firm, you're changing projects very frequently because the strategy gets formulated very quickly. But if you're in an execution firm, you're on longer projects, right? You're in there for months, maybe years. When I was in IBM, my projects used to be at least 18 months to 2 years. So that's another difference you'll see, right? Between strategy projects would be quick. We're talking sometimes as quick as 3 to 4 weeks, like a month, to usually 3 months, while execution projects would be much longer. Now, great question. Thank you. All right, let's keep going then. Um, any other consulting related questions? Otherwise, I'm going to make it personal again. No, thanks for the question. Thanks, really. All right, next two pages, we'll breeze through this, but I was hoping to spend a little bit of time, share some of what I've kind of seen. We touched on some of this, right? Got out of engineering, got into IBM, learned several things, and all of you will see this too. But really, what drove me initially was I did want to understand what it is to work in a larger company, and I was always driven to get bigger titles because I almost felt like that's kind of a mark of success, make more money. So that's what's taken me from left to right, right? So engineering. I came to the US through work, that's my great question. I'll answer that. Why did I choose consulting? I came to the US, went to a good school. I think it's a top 10 business school here, University of Virginia. Uh, Mostly because I wanted to learn beyond just engineering, beyond just systems thinking because I could see people around me who that I respected. They tend to know like broader macro concepts. They understood bigger social responsibility and issues about the community. I didn't think like that. I really did think like an engineer. So that what got me to business school. And again, in business school, as soon as you get in there, right, this is completely, and I'd say that on the top right. All the smart kids wanted to be either in consulting or in investment banking. So I did not have a very profound reason. It was really like everybody who was good, I thought was good, not that everybody was good, wanted to be in consulting. So that's what got me into it because it was almost competitive. Like if anybody who's really good in the class was trying to get into it, I wanted to get into it too. And I was lucky enough. I got into a really good consulting firm. They paid a lot of good money. And that's how I got into strategy consulting. And if you look here, right, that's the middle of my experience, and it's fantastic, right? If you get into strategy consulting, you get core analytical skills, you learn about financial modeling, and you start thinking about, and many of you here will build your own companies, you'll become leaders in other companies. Consulting lets you see those people up and close. So I worked with senior leaders in large like billion-dollar enterprises, and I could see what mattered to them. So I was very happy that I managed to get into strategy consulting, and this is not unusual. uh, you get into one of my client was trying to build a business line, so they said, hey, come over and become our chief. The title was more or less a chief product and technology officer to build an insurance line. Great experience. We did that, we built it. That's that insurance tech experience that I had. And then we sold that division, and now I'm back in consulting, and I'm much older, still have hair though, but much older. And I can tell you now that, look, it was good that I got into consulting. There's a question coming, let me just see that. What if one isn't good at engineering? It can't bring the power numbers into play. Is consulting still for them, given that they're interested in people and us? Aishwarya, wonderful question. You're kind of stealing my thunder. If it's okay, let's hold that question for one more minute. I have a page entirely on that, and I think the answer always is yes. Yes, Aishwarya, the answer is yes, and we'll talk through why. Um, I think I was some of us as engineers, we just appeal to numbers, and that's how we break into it. But I work with liberal art majors. I work with musicians who, and and so many other people who have made amazing consultants. So numbers are not the only way. I think for many people here, it's the easiest way to get in. But for the rest of us who are not interested in numbers, I would tell you soft skills is what's going to take you forward. And I have a whole page just to talk about that. So we'll get to that, Ashwarya. Great question. All right. So here, from a career journey point of view, so let's hold that question and we'll come back to it. Left to right, uh, really was about getting bigger titles. Let's make more money, prepare myself for the rest of my career. But if I step back and think about everything I've done, right, and maybe I've zoomed in. Let me zoom out. It wasn't by design. Uh, when I was building this slide, I was thinking about when I talk to you guys. If I look back, and it's now been close to 20 years I've been doing what I do, what really mattered in all the choices I made, right? From being a software engineer at IBM to going to business school to getting into strategy consulting to getting an industry job to back to consulting, right? A lot of things drove my choices, and we all will make those choices. But if I look back and think what really mattered, there were only two things. Right? What really mattered is who I knew. Right? This is very important. Like somebody told me, right? It's not your net worth, right? It's not your net worth that matters. It's your network, right? It's who you know. And if you look around, like we're about 20 people on this call today. Everybody you know in your life, the people you touch in your life would really make a difference. So take the moment, get to know each other. That's what's going to define everything you do, right? Nothing else will really matter for you. And it's too short of a life. So, but it's in all seriousness, really, it's who you know, who you spend energy with. It's your friends you've gone out with. Many of you said you were up beyond 2 a.m. last night. Think of who you were up with. That will matter. Think of who else you haven't been in touch with. Look, engineering is going to get over very quickly. So who have you not spent time talking to? Make sure you get in touch with them, get to know them. They will make a difference in your life. It's who you know. And then, of course, it's the depth of what you learn. So anything you do, right? Anything you get into, any job, any internship, any volunteering that you do, get to learn everything about it as deeply as you can, right? That's all. There's a beautiful book. Ishio Zagora. You should look for because this guy is the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos. I was looking for his favorite book, and the name's escaping me. Ishio Zagora wrote it, and it's funny. The book is about um, what's it called? A butler, right? It ends up being a love story, but it's a butler who just the half the book is obsessing about how the table setting should be, where the spoons should be, how a butler should keep everything. And I'm sitting there wondering, like, why is this his favorite book? And it's really halfway through, then I realized that you start recognizing, and Jeff Bezos is known to be customer obsessed, right? He's known to obsess about every little detail. And you see that he really appreciated how even a butler took his job so seriously that he did it like it was the best job in the whole world. So whatever you do, do it like it's the best job in the whole world. Learn about it because it'll pay off. It definitely will pay you off. Okay, that was the no, no, this is not done. We've got one more of these slides. Any questions?
I'll just in just and as an aside, I want to say this one line that you just said, that learn everything, as deeply. I really think that's very necessary. I wanted to re-emphasize this. I always tell it in class, but I want to re-emphasize, not for just learning sake. You learn it to understand it. So really, thank you for saying that. I hope you know how students are with teachers. They really teachers say this, but I hope when an industry person says it, they'll actually value it. So yes, so thank you for saying that.
Oh, you'll get paid for it. People will quickly recognize it. The more you know things and everything, whatever, read books. And Maya's right. By the way, we're in school. I, if you guys are not learning right now, you're not alone. I did not either. Uh, but if I could rewind the clock and go back, I would tell you I would want to. So you'll be highly rewarded for it. Okay. We had a beautiful question from Aishwarya. So I have a page for that. I have a whole page for that because it. So let's spend. I think we have a few more minutes. I think we're doing good on time. Let's talk about this. I really wanted to leave you. If you don't keep anything with consulting, uh, I wanted to leave you with this four-part framework that I think about life and a good career. Right. Number one is the hard skills, and this is the skill you put in your resume. Right. This is what you're learning, and you make sure that as you're kind of building your career, uh, unless you are building your own company, if you're working for somebody else, please make sure every year there's something you're adding to your resume. There's a bullet you're adding to your resume that you can take away because you're building this for yourself. Unless you're building your own company, you're doing your own thing. Uh, your hard skills matter, right? Whether it's your certification, right? Whether it's like if you're doing programming, learning a new programming language, always keep that with you, right? Do that. Or if you're going for another graduate program, I think some graduate students also join this league sometimes. Uh, but more than that, shift to the right. Soft skills. It's uh, hard to put that on a resume. You could talk about right volunteering experiences, but what are soft skills? There are many ways to define it. But if you pause for a second and think about what human beings have done, right? Uh, the only way we actually get things done is through each other, right? We work through each other, and that only comes through soft skills. It's not unknown. So back to Ashwarya's question, though, right? It's harder to hire with soft skills at an early level in your life, but it's not impossible. Especially as we get older in our career, as we move progress ahead in our career, soft skills is essentially what you get hired for. Right? You could be fantastic in your technical skills, you will not get hired because your soft skills is bad. Is bad, right? So what are soft skills? Being able to work in teams, being able to negotiate, right? Being able to influence people, being able to lead others. Uh, Most often now, like I feel very confident when I interview even junior candidates. I can understand if they have the right soft skills. There are various words for it. Like one thing they always tell it, they say it's an airport test in consulting. We always ask this. Like if you interview somebody, at the end of the interview, they'll come and ask us, "So did he pass? Did he or she pass the airport test?" So what's the airport test? Uh, so here's the airport test. The airport test says you showed up in the airport after 4 days on the road, flights delayed, you're stuck in the airport for 5 hours. Would you want to stay with this person? Right? That's the airport test. And if the person fails the airport test because they have horrible soft skills, right? You don't like them. Um, so I think I'm going around and around, but there's a couple of things here. Focus on building your soft skills. Focus on making sure you understand how to influence people, how to negotiate with people. And to answer Ashwarya's question, I think soft skill at a junior level, and this is one person's view, so please don't be discouraged by it. It's harder to get recruited by it. So you've got to bank on something. So when we are kind of entering and breaking into the market, you bank in with the engineering skills. That's where the hard skill matter. But it is not unheard of, because if you're trying to break in with your softer skills, you can still play up the systems thinking you learn for engineering. And hopefully, because you have stronger soft skills, stronger people relationship skills, you can network better. Right? Go back to one of the other things we talked about before. Uh, of course, yes. So once you get an MBA, you have to understand it's a different league altogether. Absolutely a different league. Don't spend too much money on MBA. Things are changing. But Ashwarya, yes, if you get an MBA, it's a much different thing. Consulting firms love MBA students because you've already gotten all the foundation of business degree. Right? So then the ball game's different. But even pre-MBA too, if you're really interested, I would encourage you to network. Right? Network really means get your name out there. Like if you have any uncles, your friends who are in consulting firms, send them your resume and say, look, I just want to understand. Oh yeah, one other secret for networking. I learned it out of my business school. If folks don't know here, I should tell you this. The way to do networking is, Maya, is it okay to talk about dating, or that's okay? So the way to even do, right? How do you get a date? You don't ask for a date. How do you get a job? You don't ask for a job, right? You're just out there learning and seeking to understand. You want to understand the other person. So the easiest way to network, and Ashwarya, this will help you, and for Tanmay too, and all of everybody who's been asking questions. Uh, Reach out to people who are in consulting companies and say, look, I just want to understand what you do. I'm interested. I was listening to this other alarm. I would love to learn more from you. Just that, a 15-minute phone call. And all you have to do is, I would say, 20 phone calls. It's not too much. If you think for a second, how many times you watch TV, right? If from now to before, whenever you're trying to get a job, right? If you do 20 of those 15-minute introductory phone calls, you're not asking for a job. You just want to learn about the other person and what they do. At least some of them are going to hook you in for an interview. I guarantee you that. It's a numbers game. We've all played it. That'll be a good way to do it. Okay, great questions. Really, this is turning out to be a great conversation. Um, I wanted to shift from soft skills to spiritual pursuit. Uh, it's I would not disagree with it. I would not. So Tanmay says, Sir Jack Ma says that MBA is useless. Your thought? It's very expensive. MBA is phenomenally expensive. Uh, I don't even know why it's that expensive. ROI wise, I can tell you, both me and my wife, we're both CUSAT engineers and we're both MBAs, so we both made the same mistake. But we've paid it off, and we feel when we look at our own math, the ROI was there. Um, but you'll easily find five other people, 5 out of 10 people who would have achieved the same thing without an MBA. So then it comes down to what you want to do out of it, right? That's why I keep saying, if you can somehow pull it off with good scholarship, it's good. It opens up doors, right? MBA opens up doors. Can the same doors be opened without it? I'm pretty sure it is. Right? So again, it's everybody's choices. So you consider me as a source, and I'll be biased because I had a fantastic experience through it. Right? So I'm going to say, look, it's great, but Jack Ma isn't wrong either. And then Ashwarya says, I'm currently interning with a startup in business development. Great. Is the best place to learn consulting, or should I try for big firms? Ashway, I'll have to understand more about BD, whether it's business development from an M&A point of view, or is it business development from sort of sales. But either one of those are great places to be doing, learning about business skills. And I would say, should I try for big firms? You're going to get different experiences. And this goes back to some of your. Uh, I started my career mostly with big companies, and big companies give you one kind of experience, right? You learn about big organization, you learn to become a little cog in a bigger machine. Uh, but smaller companies give you a very different experience. So if you do go to a startup, which is where Aishwarya is right now, you're really getting a much broader experience. You have to understand that. But sometimes you're also more used to faster pace, quicker decisions. And if you go to a bigger company, you'll be frustrated, right? So just understand what you're dealing with, right? It's like watching cricket. You guys are so good. You understand different teams, right? If you watch a great team, you already know what to expect. There's a lousy team having a bad season. You know what to expect. I'm not saying big companies or small companies are good teams or bad teams. They're just different teams. You're getting different experiences from them. I want to go back to spiritual pursuit. Uh, I grew up in India, Fauji family, not a whole lot. Like our religious thing was really just go to temple every now and then. I'm not asking anybody to, in this, we'll not have a religious discussion, but we should have a spiritual discussion, right? It's make sure as you're building your career, you're building your family, you're contributing to the community, take care of yourself, right? And how do you take care of yourself is to remember, don't just get obsessed about yourself. Try to find something which is larger than you. Could be anything, whatever that is, right? Most people find a spiritual connection to God. I don't find a spiritual connection to God, but I find spiritual connection to just something beyond me. So look for that, right? Whether it's good friends that you really can associate with. I know Maya's got lots of causes that she's serving the community with, whatever that is, right? Whether it's a hobby, like I think I was mentioning to Manilal that I run marathons. Is how's that spiritual? It gets you out of your own head, right? So find ways to elevate yourself, whether it's religion, whether it's spiritual uh, pursuits, whether it's reading books, reading Plato, reading Marcus Aurelius, the famous stoic Roman king, whoever it is, read them, understand them. It'll help you as you kind of grow in life. And finally, the last thing, okay, no, that's no more questions. The last thing I was going to say is I called it created luck, and we touched upon this before, right? The only thing that will matter in life as you look back, as you go forward and right, is were you in the right place at the right time. Half the thing in life is about showing up. So let's connect a few things, right? Who you know will always matter, who you know and where you were. So don't waste time sitting at home. Don't waste time not, well, let's say it differently. Don't be afraid. There's enough time in life. Good things will happen. Great things will happen for you. But the way that'll happen is you create the opportunity, you create the luck. And the way you do that is you get to know a lot of people and be in all the right places. Just find a way to be there, right? Whatever's happening, wherever it's happening, show up. Show up. If you're afraid, don't worry. I'm extremely introvert, like many engineers, right? Very introvert. I feel nervous. But when I look back and see what has really helped me in life, things that have worked out for me is when I've actually showed up. Like I must be like feeling like a train wreck inside, but by being there, very lucky things have happened to me. Um, very lucky things will happen to all of you. Uh, just be there, show up, right? Even if you're scared, even if it doesn't seem like it's the right thing for you. Uh, just remember, trust the process and show up. And that's it. That's what I had prepared. Thank you for all of your time. I really can't tell you. This is Saturday morning and everybody's here. Great questions. Thank you, all of you. Uh, I can be on for some more time. As you can see, I love answering questions. Uh, but I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Guys, any questions? You can either unmute yourself or put in chat. There's a question there, Ravi.
I can see that. Uh, That's a good question, Tanmay. It's funny. Like it should be about will I go back to software engineering? I'm going to answer it like this. I've now got to a point in my life that I don't say no to anything because I feel like if anything comes my way and if it's attractive and interesting enough a problem, I jump into it. Interestingly enough, like right now, I'm a management consultant, but I'm helping an insurance company develop actuarial tables. How do you do risk underwriting? And only way you do that these days is by writing code. Uh, so I'm helping him with the head of actuary there write code right now. I'm not coding myself, but I'm helping him kind of develop the algorithm and I'm writing. So the tongue-in-cheek way of answering it will be Tanmay, if the problem is interesting enough, yeah, why not? I'll totally do it. And you will too. Anybody here, once you become a programmer of any sort, look, it's we think like that, right? You think in algorithms, you think in problem solving. Uh, you'll never lose those concepts from you. And software engineering, software is going to be here, right? We haven't even automated, digitized half of what we can, maybe not even third of what we can. So this is not a plug for software engineering. And if folks here who don't want to be software engineers, you still have great career. But folks who are interested in digitization, technology, you have to understand there's so much for us to do. Right? There's a lot out there. It's a great career, good place to be.
Any other
Thanks for this.
questions, guys? You could please feel free. Thank you. All
I
right.
gotta say this. Fantastic group. Thanks, everybody. This is really nice. Uh, you'll find me on LinkedIn. Like, folks, I know everybody's very digitally savvy. You'll find me on LinkedIn and other places. Reach out with questions. Love to help as much as I can and however I can. Advises, anything.
Thank you so much, Avi, for that fantastic session. Not just about consulting, but even the insights you gave about how to lead the life. I am sure the gyan, because I give them gyan every day. Every day at 9 a.m. gyan is always there. So I'm happy there's someone else giving really wonderful gyan. So please, guys, listen to him, even if you don't listen to me. So yes, so thank you so much for your time, Avi, and thank you guys for coming in at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. I know it's
Yes.
tough, but you came in, so thank you for that. See ya,
You guys are the
guys.
champion. You guys are the champion. See you all.
Take care. Bye.